You think you know the darkest secrets hidden in your own home? I used to think so too. But then came a scream, a slammed door, and a dusty box in the corner of the garage that changed everything. I kept silent for years, until the day he slapped me for simply cleaning up. That moment, standing there with my cheek burning and my daughter's terrified eyes watching. I realized the truth I'd uncovered could destroy him. The question was, would I stay silent, or would I finally fight back? My name is Rachel, and 3 years ago, I never imagined I'd be back in my childhood home at 34, daughter in tow, starting over from scratch. The divorce had stripped me down to nothing but determination and a fierce love for Sophie, my 9-year-old daughter who deserved better than the cramped studio apartment my warehouse manager's salary could afford. Sterling Logistics paid decent money for Colorado, but not enough to cover rent, childcare, and the mountain of legal bills that came with extracting myself from a marriage gone sour. So I swallowed my pride and called my mother, Linda, who welcomed us back with open arms and tearful relief. Those first months were peaceful, almost healing. Mom and I would sit on the back porch after Sophie went to bed, sharing wine and watching the riverside mountains fade into darkness. She'd retired from nursing, and the house felt warm again, filled with the smell of her baking and the sound of Sophie's laughter echoing through rooms I'd once called my own. Then Mark arrived. Mom met him at her book club, a recently divorced accountant with salt and pepper hair and what she called such lovely manners. He courted her like they were teenagers, bringing flowers every Friday, taking her to nice restaurants downtown. I was happy for her at first. She'd been alone since Dad died 8 years ago, and seeing her smile that way again felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. They married quietly at the courthouse 6 months later. I stood as her witness, Sophie as the flower girl, everyone glowing with new beginnings. Mark moved in the following week, his presence immediately shifting the house's atmosphere like a storm front moving in. The lovely manners disappeared behind closed doors. In their place emerged a man who believed in hierarchies, in his role as head of household, in the natural order where his word was law. He'd never raised his voice during their courtship, but now his deep baritone carried commands that made my mother shrink into herself. Linda, this meatloaf is dry. Linda, why is the laundry still in the dryer? Linda, we need to discuss your daughter's contribution to this household. That last one came up frequently. Despite paying Mom rent and buying my own groceries, Mark viewed Sophie and me as freeloaders, charity cases disrupting his perfectly ordered life. He'd make subtle digs at dinner about people who can't manage their own affairs and the burden of extended family. I endured it because I had a plan. Every month, I squirreled away whatever I could into a savings account, watching the balance creep toward a down payment. Just 2 more years. I told myself, 2 more years, and Sophie and I would have our own place, our own life, free from Mark's suffocating presence. But then Kyle showed up. Mark's 22-year-old son arrived one night with a duffel bag and a story about needing space from his mom. Unlike Sophie and me, Kyle was welcomed with open arms, given the finished basement as his domain, rent-free. He was unemployed, spent his days gaming and his nights drinking. Yet Mark looked at him with pride while treating my daughter like an unwanted guest. The contrast was stark and deliberate. Mark would buy Kyle expensive gaming equipment while complaining about the cost of Sophie's school supplies. He'd cook Kyle special meals while pointedly ignoring Sophie's dietary restrictions. When Kyle's friends came over to party until 3 a.m., it was boys being boys. When Sophie had a sleepover for her birthday, Mark complained about the noise at 9 p.m. Mom saw it all but said nothing. Her silence a betrayal that cut deeper than Mark's cruelty. She'd retreat to their bedroom when tensions rose, leaving me to navigate his moods alone. The strong woman who'd raised me had disappeared, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I started working overtime, partly for the extra money, but mostly to avoid the house. The warehouse became my refuge, the predictable chaos of logistics soothing compared to the minefield of home. But I couldn't protect Sophie from it all. She began asking why Grandpa Mark didn't like her, why Kyle got everything while she got scolded for existing. The weight of it pressed down on me, a constant pressure that made breathing difficult. Each day felt like drowning in slow motion, watching my daughter's light dim while I scraped together our escape fund dollar by dollar. I never imagined it would get worse. I never imagined he'd actually hit me. But looking back now, I see how the violence was always there, simmering beneath his controlled surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. That moment came on a Saturday afternoon, in a garage filled with secrets, where everything I thought I knew about power would shatter and reshape itself into something harder, sharper, and infinitely more dangerous. That Saturday started like any other, with Mark issuing orders over breakfast like a general commanding troops. I'd worked 50 hours that week, my body aching from lifting boxes and managing inventory, but rest wasn't an option in Mark's household. "The garage is a disgrace," he announced, not looking up from his newspaper. "Rachel, since you're not contributing much else around here, you can clean it out today." I bit back my response, feeling Sophie's eyes on me. She'd learned to go quiet during these moments, shrinking into her chair like she could disappear. Kyle sat across from us, smirking as he scrolled through his phone, probably texting his buddies about another party. The garage was Mark's domain, packed floor to ceiling with boxes he'd moved from his old place, Kyle's broken exercise equipment, and decades of accumulated junk. The late September heat had turned it into an oven, dust motes dancing in the slanted light from the single window. I started with the obvious trash, empty paint cans, moldy magazines, broken furniture that Mark insisted on keeping just in case. My back screamed as I hauled bags to the curb, sweat soaking through my shirt. Sophie tried to help, but I sent her inside, not wanting her near the mess of mouse droppings and rusty nails. 4 hours in, I'd cleared maybe a quarter of the space. My hands were filthy, my hair escaping from its ponytail in damp strands. I was reaching for another box when the side door slammed open so hard it bounced off the wall. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Mark filled the doorway, his face flushed red, fists clenched at his sides. Behind him, Kyle lounged against the doorframe, that familiar smirk playing on his lips. "You told me to clean the garage," I said, straightening up despite my protesting spine. "I didn't tell you to go through my personal belongings." He stormed toward me, and I instinctively stepped back, bumping into a tower of boxes. "Those are my financial records, my private documents." "I was just organizing." "You were snooping." His voice rose to a roar. "Just like your mother, always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. No wonder your husband left you." The words hit like physical blows, but I'd heard worse from him. What made my blood run cold was seeing Sophie in the doorway, drawn by the shouting, her small face pale with fear. "Sophie, go inside," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, run along," Kyle added with a laugh. "Let the adults handle this." Mark advanced another step. "You think because you pay a little rent, you can rifle through my things? You and that kid are nothing but parasites, bleeding us dry." "I pay $800 a month," I snapped, exhaustion overriding caution. "I buy our own food. I pay for Sophie's everything. What exactly are we bleeding?" "Don't you dare talk back to me!" His hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap cracked across my cheek like lightning, snapping my head sideways. Pain exploded through my face, my ear ringing from the impact. I stumbled, catching myself on a shelf, tasting copper where my teeth had cut the inside of my cheek. The garage went silent except for my ragged breathing. Through the shock, I heard Sophie's sob, saw her pressed against the doorframe with tears streaming down her face. My mother appeared behind her, her face a mask of horror, but she didn't move, didn't speak, didn't do anything. Kyle laughed, actually laughed. "Maybe now you'll learn some respect," Mark said, his voice cold with satisfaction. He turned to Kyle. "Come on, son. Let's go get those beers I promised you." They left me standing there, my cheek throbbing, my daughter crying, my mother frozen in complicit silence. The humiliation burned hotter than the pain. Not just the slap, but the casual way he'd done it, like I was nothing. like I deserved it. Sophie ran to me, wrapping her thin arms around my waist, sobbing into my stomach. "I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for, baby," I whispered, stroking her hair with shaking hands. "None of this is your fault." My mother finally moved, approaching hesitantly. "Rachel, maybe you should put some ice on that." I looked at her, this woman who'd raised me to be strong, who'd taught me to never let anyone diminish my worth, and felt something break inside me. "Is that all you have to say?" She couldn't meet my eyes. He's under a lot of stress with work. You know how men get." "He hit me, Mom, in front of Sophie." I know. But if you could try not to provoke him." I turned away, unable to bear another word, still holding Sophie. I walked to the corner where I'd been working, needing to finish this section just to feel like I had control over something. My hands shook as I reached for the next box, a wooden crate shoved far beneath the metal shelving. That's when I saw it, hidden behind paint cans and drop cloths, covered in years of dust, an old lockbox that definitely didn't belong with the garage tools. The lock was rusted, but the box itself looked expensive, important. Something told me to leave it alone, but my cheek still burned from his hand. Sophie's tears still wet my shirt, and my mother's betrayal sat like lead in my stomach. I pulled out the box. Decision made. Whatever was inside, Mark clearly didn't want it found. And after what just happened, I was done playing by his rules. I had no idea that inside that dusty box lay the power to flip the entire game board, to transform myself from victim to player, from prey to predator. But I was about to find out. I waited until the house settled into sleep before examining the box properly. Sophie lay curled beside me in our shared room, her breathing finally steady after crying herself to exhaustion. My cheek had swollen, the bruise already purple in the mirror, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the rage simmering in my chest. The lockbox sat on my desk, its rusted lock mocking me. I'd hidden it in my closet earlier, wrapped in an old sweater. Now, with a screwdriver borrowed from the kitchen drawer, I worked at the lock until it finally gave way with a metallic snap. What I found inside made my hands tremble. Bank statements, dozens of them, all in Mark's name, but showing transactions I knew my mother knew nothing about. Large cash deposits, followed by equally large withdrawals, sometimes on the same day. The pattern screamed gambling. Deposits when he won, withdrawals when he needed to pay debts or place new bets. But that wasn't the worst part. Beneath the statements lay mortgage documents for Mom's house, the house Dad had paid off before he died. The house that should have been free and clear. Mark had taken out not one but 2 mortgages, forging my mother's signature with practiced ease. The papers showed the house leveraged to its maximum value. All that equity Dad worked his whole life to build now feeding Mark's addiction. My stomach churned as I dug deeper. Loan documents from 3 different companies, all secured against the house, past due notices, a foreclosure warning dated 2 months ago that Mom had never seen. We were maybe 3 months from losing everything, and she had no idea. At the bottom of the box, wrapped in plastic, was a USB drive. I powered up my laptop, my heart hammering as I inserted the drive, password protected, of course, but Mark wasn't clever. I tried a few combinations before hitting gold with Kyle's birthday, the golden child's special day. The files that loaded made me gasp out loud, then quickly muffle the sound to avoid waking Sophie. Spreadsheets, hundreds of them, all from Sterling Logistics where Mark worked as senior accountant. But these weren't official company documents. These were shadow books, fake invoices, doctored expense reports, phantom vendor accounts that all traced back to a single bank account, Mark's personal account. He'd been embezzling for years. The amount started small, a few thousand here and there, but had grown to tens of thousands per month. All told, he'd stolen nearly $500,000 from my employer, the company where I broke my back every day for an honest wage while he sat in his air-conditioned office stealing with a few keystrokes. I cross-referenced the dates, The embezzlement had accelerated around the time he married Mom, probably to cover his mounting gambling debts. He was using Sterling Logistics as his personal ATM, and the house, Mom's security, her nest egg, as collateral for his addiction. A sound in the hallway made me freeze. Footsteps, heavy ones, Mark. I quickly closed the laptop, shoving the papers back in the box and sliding it under my bed. The footsteps paused outside my door. I held my breath, one arm instinctively moving to shield Sophie. The doorknob started to turn. "Rachel?" My mother's voice, barely a whisper. "Are you awake?" Relief flooded through me as I cracked open the door. She stood in her nightgown, looking older than her 60 years, eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "About earlier. I don't know what's happened to me. I used to be stronger." Part of me wanted to comfort her, but a larger part couldn't forget her silence when I needed her most. "Mom, we need to talk. Not here. Tomorrow, when he's at work." She nodded, glancing nervously down the hall toward their bedroom. "He's passed out. Drank half a bottle of whiskey with Kyle. Rachel, I'm scared. Of him. Of what he's become. Or maybe what he always was." I wanted to tell her everything right then, but Sophie stirred in her sleep, and I knew this conversation needed privacy and time. "Tomorrow, Mom, meet me for lunch. Just the two of us." After she left, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through possibilities. The evidence in that box was a loaded weapon. I could destroy Mark with a single email to Sterling's fraud department. I could have him arrested, imprisoned, removed from our lives forever. But what would that mean for Mom? The house was already in foreclosure proceedings. If Mark went to prison, those debts wouldn't disappear. She'd lose everything. The home she'd shared with Dad, her security, her dignity. And where would that leave Sophie and me? No, revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about justice, about balance, about taking back power and using it wisely. I thought about all the times Mark had humiliated me, treated Sophie like she was worthless, reduced my mother to a shadow. He'd hit me today because he thought he could, because he believed I was powerless, beneath him, nothing but a burden to be endured or eliminated. He was wrong. By morning, I had a plan, not to destroy Mark, but to defang him, to turn his own crimes into a leash that would keep him in check, to flip the power dynamic so completely he'd never raise his hand or voice to us again. Sophie woke as dawn light filtered through the curtains, immediately touching my bruised cheek with gentle fingers. "Does it hurt, Mommy?" "Not anymore, baby," I said, and for the first time in months, I meant it. The physical pain was nothing compared to the electric thrill of knowing that everything was about to change. Mark thought he'd won when he slapped me in that garage. He thought he'd put me in my place, reminded me of my position in his household hierarchy. But he'd made a critical error. He'd driven me to exactly where I needed to be, pushed me to uncover the very secrets that would end his reign of terror. The box under my bed wasn't just evidence. It was freedom. It was power. It was the key to a game Mark didn't even know he was already losing. And I was just getting started. The lunch with Mom had to wait. Monday morning brought an unexpected ally when Maya Martinez, Sterling's senior accountant and my closest friend at work, noticed my bruised face despite my careful concealer job. "Don't," she said, closing my office door behind her. "Don't tell me you walked into a door." Maya and I had started at Sterling the same year. Both single mothers fighting our way up from entry-level positions. She'd seen me through my divorce, and I'd held her hand through her custody battles. If anyone could help me navigate the financial minefield I'd discovered, it was her. "I need your help," I said quietly. "But what I'm about to show you, it could affect the company." Her dark eyes sharpened. "Show me." I pulled out my phone where I'd photographed some of the embezzlement documents. Maya's expression grew progressively darker as she scrolled through them, her accountant's mind immediately catching patterns I'd missed. "Jesus Christ, Rachel. This is massive. These phantom vendors, the way he's layered the transactions. Your stepfather's been bleeding Sterling dry, and smart about it too. Small enough amounts to fly under automatic audit flags, but it adds up to 487,000, I finished. Over 6 years. You have to report this. I know, but it's complicated. I explained about the mortgages, the forged signatures, my mother's precarious position. If I burn him, she loses everything. Sophie and I have nowhere to go. Maya leaned back, her analytical mind working. But if you don't report it and Sterling finds out, which they will, eventually, you could be implicated as an accessory. You found evidence and sat on it. So what do? You leverage it, she said simply. This isn't just about revenge. Rachel, it's about survival. You need to protect yourself and Sophie first. She pulled out a legal pad, sketching out possibilities. Here's what I would do. Over the next hour, Maya helped me craft a 3-phase plan that would protect my family while neutralizing Mark's power over us. Phase 1. Document everything, not just photographs, but backups stored in multiple secure locations. Maya gave me access to her personal cloud storage, creating an encrypted folder only we could access. Insurance, she called it. Phase 2. Secure an exit strategy. I'd already been saving for an apartment, but Maya suggested something bolder. There's a small condo for sale in the Riverside Elementary District. Owner's desperate. Divorce sale. With your savings and a first-time buyer loan, you could swing it. I know a realtor who can fast-track things. Phase 3. The confrontation. But not how Mark would expect. No emotional explosion. No desperate ultimatum. Cold, calculated, professional. Present it like a business transaction, Maya advised. He's a numbers guy. Show him the numbers. His freedom for your family's security. That evening, I met with Maya's realtor contact. The condo was perfect. Small but clean. 2 bedrooms, a tiny yard for Sophie, and most importantly, immediate occupancy available. The seller was willing to negotiate, desperate to unload it before their own foreclosure. I can get you approved by Friday, the realtor promised. Cash helps move things along. I had most of what I needed saved, but not quite enough for closing costs. That's when I remembered Mark's home office, his precious sanctuary where no one was allowed. If he was hiding one box of secrets, there might be more. Tuesday night, while Mark attended his weekly poker game and Kyle was out with friends, I slipped into the office. Mom watched TV downstairs, lost in her shows, carefully not noticing what I was doing. Mark's filing cabinet was locked, but the key was exactly where an arrogant man would hide it, taped under his desk drawer. Inside, I found more evidence of his double life. Bank statements from accounts Mom didn't know existed. Receipts from casinos across Colorado. A safety deposit box key with a number that matched nothing in the official documents. And in the bottom drawer, wrapped in a manila envelope, $15,000 in cash. I stared at the money, understanding flooding through me. This was his emergency fund. His bug-out money in case everything collapsed. Cash that couldn't be traced. Wouldn't be reported. Didn't officially exist. Taking it would be theft. But then again, so was everything he'd done to Sterling Logistics. So was mortgaging Mom's house without her knowledge. So was the security he'd stolen from all of us. I photographed the cash in place, then took exactly what I needed for the condo closing costs, $8,000. I left the rest, resealing the envelope carefully. Let him think he miscounted. Let him wonder. Let him feel. For once, the uncertainty that had become our daily bread. Wednesday, I signed the papers for the condo. Thursday, Maya helped me create a comprehensive report documenting Mark's embezzlement, names, dates, amounts, patterns, everything Sterling would need to prosecute, wrapped up with a bow. You sure about this? She asked as I saved the report to a flash drive. My insurance policy, my weapon, my freedom. He hit me in front of my daughter, I said quietly. He's stealing from the company where I work myself to the bone. He's destroyed my mother's future. Yeah, I'm sure. Friday morning, I walked Sophie to school, then called in sick to work. I had documents to gather, copies to make, A case to build. The bruise on my face had faded to yellow-green, but the memory burned fresh. Tonight, when Mark came home from work, everything would change. I spent the day arranging pieces on my mental chessboard. The condo papers were signed and filed. The evidence was organized, backed up, ready to deploy. Sophie's most important belongings were quietly packed in boxes, hidden in my car trunk. By evening, I was ready, not nervous, not afraid, ready. Mark had taught me something valuable when he hit me in that garage. He'd shown me that playing by the rules, being good, keeping quiet, none of that protected you from men like him. The only thing that stopped a bully was power. And thanks to his own arrogance, his certainty that the women in his house were too weak and stupid to fight back, he'd left that power lying around for me to find. Sophie was at a sleepover, safely away from what was coming. Mom was at her book club. It would be just Mark and me for the confrontation, exactly how I wanted it. I heard his car in the driveway at 6:47 p.m., showtime. I sat at the kitchen table, the wooden box between my hands, a folder of printed evidence beside it, my phone recorded audio in my pocket. Maya waited on standby, ready to call the police if I sent the signal. The garage door rumbled open, his footsteps in the hallway, heavy and confident. The king returning to his castle, unaware that his throne had already been usurped. "Linda," he called out, "where's dinner?" "She's out," I said calmly. "It's just you and me. Mark, we need to talk." He appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, face already flushing with annoyance. Then he saw the box, and the color drained from his skin like water from a sink. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. "We have a lot to discuss about your future." Mark stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes locked on the wooden box like it was a live grenade. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, charged with electricity. I kept my hands steady on the table, channeling every ounce of calm I'd stored up over the past week. I said, "Sit down." My voice carried an authority I'd never used with him before. He moved slowly, pulling out the chair with deliberate care. "Where did you get that?" "Where you hid it, behind the paint cans, under the shelf. Very thorough cleaning job you ordered me to do." I opened the box, laying out documents in neat rows, bank statements, mortgage papers, the USB drive. Turns out I'm quite good at following instructions. His jaw worked silently, hands clenching and unclenching on the table. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much damage control he needed. "You went through my private... Your embezzlement records? Yes. Your gambling debts? Those too. The mortgages you took out on Mom's house by forging her signature? Absolutely." I tapped the USB drive. "And Sterling Logistics missing $500,000? Every penny accounted for." The remaining color fled his face. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like." I pulled out my phone, showing him screenshots of the spreadsheets. Phantom vendors, shell accounts, 6 years of systematic theft from the company where I work, where you knew I worked when you started stealing. "Rachel, listen." "No, you listen." I leaned forward, meeting his eyes with the same cold stare he'd perfected over months of belittling me. "I've spent the week consulting with forensic accountants. Your scheme was clever, but not clever enough. Sterling's fraud department would have a field day with this." He lurched forward, reaching for the documents. I pulled them back calmly. "Touch these papers and I'll scream loud enough for every neighbor to hear. Try to hit me again, and the cops Maya has on speed dial will be here in 3 minutes." I smiled, watching him process this new reality. "Oh yes, people know. I'm not stupid enough to confront you without backup." Mark's face cycled through emotions: rage, fear, calculation, back to rage. "What do you want? Money? You think you can blackmail me?" "I think I can destroy you." I spread out the mortgage documents. "Mom doesn't know about these yet. Imagine her reaction when she learns you've stolen her home. The place Dad worked 30 years to pay off. Imagine Kyle's face when he discovers Daddy's going to federal prison for embezzlement." You'd hurt your mother. You hurt her the moment you forged her signature. I stood, pacing now, energy crackling through me. But you're right. I don't want to destroy her life, which is why I'm offering you a deal. One chance. Take it, or I send everything to Sterling's legal department tonight. He was sweating now, tie askew, the polished businessman facade cracking. What deal? I placed 3 documents in front of him. First, a quitclaim deed transferring all interest in this house back to Mom solely. Second, a signed agreement removing yourself from all joint accounts. Third, a promissory note agreeing to pay back the second mortgage in full within 2 years. That's impossible. I don't have... Then you better find it. Sell your car, cash out your 401k, get a second job. I don't care how. I leaned against the counter, savoring the reversal. Oh, and you'll be moving out. Kyle, too. You have 30 days. This is my house. This is Mom's house that you stole. I picked up the USB drive, rolling it between my fingers. 1 email, Mark, 1 click, and you're explaining to federal investigators why Sterling's money funded your gambling addiction. I wonder how well an accountant does in prison. His fist slammed the table. You can't do this. Linda won't let you. She loves me. She loved who she thought you were. I pulled out one final document, a bank statement showing a cash withdrawal from 3 days ago. By the way, you might want to check your office emergency fund. Seems to be about $8,000 light. Funny how cash just disappears, isn't it? The trap closed around him beautifully. Report the theft and reveal his secret stash. Stay silent and lose his bug-out money. I watched him realize it. Saw the moment he understood he'd been outmaneuvered. You little... Choose your next words very carefully. I held up my phone, showing the recording app running. Everything you say is being documented. 1 threat, 1 step toward me, and this negotiation ends with handcuffs. He slumped back, defeated, the mighty Mark, who'd ruled through intimidation and fear, reduced to a cornered animal. What about Kyle? Kyle's an adult. He can find his own way, just like I had to. I pushed the documents closer. Sign them, all of them, now. I need a lawyer to review. You need to sign before Mom gets home, or I show her everything right now. Your choice. His hand shook as he picked up the pen. Each signature was a small death of his ego, his control, his carefully constructed kingdom. I watched dispassionately, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. The house transfer needs to be notarized, he said desperately, grasping for delays. Maya's a notary. She'll be here in the morning. I collected the signed papers, placing them carefully in my bag. This is how it's going to work. You'll behave normally until the transfers are complete. No drama, no revenge attempts, no trying to turn Mom against me. Cross me once, and Sterling gets the whole package. You're destroying my life. I'm saving my family. I stood, looking down at the broken man who'd terrorized us for 2 years. You destroyed your own life the moment you chose to steal. I'm just holding up a mirror. What am I supposed to tell Linda? The truth, that you have irreconcilable differences, that you're moving out amicably, that you want her to have the house. Spin it however you want, but make it clean. He looked up at me with genuine bewilderment. When did you become so cold? The moment you slapped me in front of my daughter, I touched my cheek where the bruise had been. You taught me that kindness is weakness in your world. Thanks for the lesson. Footsteps on the porch announced Mom's return. Mark started to rise, but I shook my head. Smile, I commanded. Act normal. Remember, I'm watching every move you make. Mom entered, chattering about her book club, oblivious to the tectonic shift that had just occurred in her kitchen. She kissed Mark's cheek, and I saw him force a smile, playing the devoted husband one more time. Oh, Rachel, there you are. Did you two have dinner? Just finishing up some paperwork, I said smoothly. Mark was helping me understand some financial documents. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Mark nodded stiffly, trapped in the web of his own making. That's nice, Mom beamed. It's good to see you two getting along. If only she knew. But she would. Soon enough. For now, I had what I needed: signed documents, recorded confession, and complete leverage over the man who'd made our lives hell. The king was dethroned. Long live the queen. The next morning arrived with Maya at our doorstep at precisely 9 a.m., notary seal in hand, and a no-nonsense expression that could freeze hellfire. Mark sat at the dining table, looking haggard after what I imagined was a sleepless night. Mom had left for her Saturday morning yoga class, blissfully unaware of the document signing about to take place. "Mr. Harrison," Maya said crisply, setting her materials on the table, "I understand we have some property transfers to notarize." Mark's jaw tightened at her formal tone. He knew Maya from Sterling Company events, knew she worked in accounting. The implications weren't lost on him. I had allies in dangerous places. "This is extortion," he muttered as Maya checked his ID. "This is consequences," I corrected, pouring coffee with steady hands. "Maya, would you like some coffee?" "No, thank you." She maintained professional distance, witnessing his signatures with clinical efficiency. Each stamp of her seal was another nail in the coffin of his control. When the property deed was properly executed, transferring full ownership to Mom, I saw something die in Mark's eyes. The house had been his ultimate power play, his chess piece to control everything. Now it was gone. Kyle chose that moment to stumble upstairs, hungover and belligerent. "What's this? A party?" "Pack your things," Mark said quietly. "We're moving out." "What?" Kyle's bloodshot eyes darted between us. "Dad, what's going on?" "Your father will explain later," I said, sliding the completed documents into a folder. "You have 30 days, but I'd suggest starting today." "You can't kick us out!" Kyle turned on me, face flushing red like his father's. "This is our house, too." "Actually, it's not." I held up the deed. "Never was. Your father's name was never on the original deed, and now any claim he manufactured has been legally relinquished." Kyle lunged forward, but Mark caught his arm. "Don't. She's got us. Son, we have to go." "Got you? What does she have?" Kyle's voice cracked with confusion and rage. "She's nobody. Just some divorced loser who can't—" "Enough." Mark's voice carried defeat I'd never heard before. "Go pack. I'll explain in the car." Kyle stormed off, slamming doors and cursing. Maya packed her notary supplies with quiet satisfaction. At the door, she paused. "The forensic analysis you requested is complete," she said, loud enough for Mark to hear. "Everything's documented and verified. Multiple copies secured." She smiled coldly. "Have a pleasant weekend." After she left, Mark and I stood in the foyer, the power dynamic completely reversed from a week ago when he'd slapped me in the garage. "You've thought of everything," he said bitterly. "I learned from the best." I opened the front door. "Start packing. Mom will be home in an hour, and I want you to tell her you're leaving voluntarily. Make it about growing apart, irreconcilable differences, whatever. But make it gentle. She doesn't deserve more pain than you've already caused." "And if I don't?" "Then I show her everything. The gambling, the theft, the mortgages, her choice whether to visit you in federal prison." He left without another word. I heard him upstairs, talking to Kyle in low, urgent tones, drawers slamming, Kyle's voice rising in anger, then Mark's sharp command to shut up and pack. Mom returned to find them loading Kyle's car with boxes. Her face went white as she rushed inside. "Rachel, what's happening?" I guided her to the kitchen, away from the windows. "They're leaving. Mom, Mark says you've grown apart." But I don't understand. This morning everything was fine." "Was it?" I sat beside her, taking her weathered hands in mine. "When's the last time you felt truly happy with him? Safe with him? Like yourself?" She started crying then, shoulders shaking with the kind of sobs that came from relief as much as sadness. "I've been so scared," she whispered. "So small, I don't even recognize myself anymore." "You're going to be okay." I held her as she cried. "The house is safe. Your retirement is safe. You're safe. How? How is the house safe? Mark said we might have to sell. Mark lied about a lot of things. I chose my words carefully. But that's over now. The house is in your name, free and clear. I made sure of it. She pulled back, searching my face. What did you do? What I had to. What you couldn't. I wiped her tears. Someday I'll explain everything. Right now. Just know you're free. We watched through the window as Mark supervised Kyle cramming the last boxes into his car. He glanced back once, catching my eye through the glass. I didn't look away. He broke first, climbing into his BMW and driving off without a goodbye to the woman he'd claimed to love. Where will they go? Mom asked. Kyle's mother, probably, or a motel. Not our problem anymore. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, the bruise on your face, he did that, didn't he? Yes. I'm so sorry. I should have. You were scared. I understand. I squeezed her hand. But that's over now. No more being afraid in our own home. That evening, after Mom had cried herself out and gone to bed early, I did a final sweep of Mark's office. He'd taken his computer and important files, but left plenty behind. In his haste, he'd missed one crucial item, a second USB drive taped under his desk drawer. This one contained personal files, tax returns showing unreported gambling winnings, screenshots of affair dating sites, messages with other women. Even if he somehow wiggled out of the embezzlement charges, this would ensure Mom got everything in a divorce. I added it to my insurance file, another layer of protection. Men like Mark didn't stay down easily. He'd regroup, maybe try to manipulate Mom, certainly attempt some form of revenge. But I'd be ready. Sophie came home from her sleepover Sunday afternoon to find Kyle's basement lair empty and Mark's office being converted to a craft room for her. Where did they go, Mommy? They moved out, baby. It's just us and Grandma now. Her face lit up with pure joy. Really? We don't have to be quiet anymore? I can use the big TV? You can use whatever you want. This is our home now. She hugged me tight, and I felt the last of the tension leave my body. We'd won, not through violence or screaming matches, but through careful planning and cold execution. Mark had taught me that power wasn't about who could yell loudest or hit hardest. It was about who held the cards that mattered. That evening, as Sophie and Mom watched a movie in the living room, volume turned up without fear, I got a text from an unknown number. You haven't won. This isn't over. I screenshotted it immediately, adding it to my evidence file. Then I typed back. Actually, it is. Check with Sterling's fraud department tomorrow. They'll be very interested in an anonymous tip they're about to receive, unless you'd prefer to honor our agreement. The typing dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, I'll honor it. Smart choice. I blocked the number and poured myself a glass of wine. Outside, the Colorado sunset painted the mountains gold. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. Sophie's laughter drifted from the living room, mixing with Mom's, the sound of freedom. The king was gone, the castle was ours, and the queen? She was just getting started. 2 weeks passed in relative peace. Sophie bloomed like a flower in sunshine, no longer tiptoeing through her own home. Mom started cooking again, humming in the kitchen, color returning to her cheeks. I should have known it was too quiet. The first sign of trouble came through Maya at work. She pulled me aside during lunch break, her expression grim. Sterling's internal audit team just launched a comprehensive review of the accounting department, she said quietly. Someone tipped them off about discrepancies. My stomach dropped. But I didn't. I know you didn't, but Mark's panicking. He's been calling in sick, probably destroying evidence. She glanced around, lowering her voice further. Rachel, if he thinks he's going down anyway, he might get desperate. Watch your back. That evening, Mom mentioned she'd been getting hang-up calls. Sophie said a strange car had been parked outside her school. Small things, but they added up to surveillance. Mark was watching, waiting, planning something. The confrontation came Thursday night. Mom was at her book club, or so we thought, Sophie and I were making dinner when we heard the garage door open. Mom never used the garage entrance. Stay here, I told Sophie, grabbing my phone, but before I could dial 911, Mark appeared in the kitchen doorway. Not alone. Kyle flanked him, and worse, Mom stood between them, looking confused and frightened. Sit down, Mark commanded. All of you, we're going to have a family discussion. This isn't your family anymore, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. You're violating the agreement. Leave now or I make the call to Sterling. He smiled coldly. You mean this call? He held up his phone, showing an email draft to Sterling's fraud department. See, I've been thinking, if I'm going down anyway, why not tell them the whole story? How you found evidence and tried to blackmail me instead of reporting it immediately. That makes you an accessory after the fact. My blood chilled. He was right. I'd compromised myself by not reporting immediately. Mommy? Sophie's voice was small, scared. It's okay, baby. But it wasn't. I'd miscalculated, gotten overconfident. Here's what's going to happen, Mark continued. You're going to return everything you took, every document, every copy, every backup. Then you're going to write a statement saying you fabricated evidence to extort me during a mental breakdown following your divorce. That's insane. No one would believe. A bitter divorcee living with Mommy, desperate for money? Kyle laughed. Yeah, totally unbelievable. Mom looked between us, lost. What evidence? What's going on? Mark's face darkened. Your daughter's been spreading lies. Linda, trying to break us apart with fake documents because she can't stand seeing you happy. That's not true. Mom, I pulled out my phone slowly. I have proof. Kyle snatched it from my hand, throwing it against the wall where it shattered. Oops, Butterfingers. You're making this worse for yourself, I said, but fear was creeping in. They'd planned this ambush carefully. Am I? Mark pulled out a folder. See? I've been busy too. Did some digging on you. Rachel, found some interesting things, like how you've been taking work supplies home, theft of company property, how you've been clocking overtime hours while working from home, time card fraud, small stuff, but it adds up. Enough to get you fired, definitely, maybe arrested. I stared at him. Those are lies. Are they? I have witnesses. Security footage can be interpreted many ways. Kyle here saw you loading boxes of office supplies into your car. Total theft, Kyle agreed with mock sincerity. I was shocked. The trap was elegant in its simplicity, mutually assured destruction. Even if his crimes were worse, he could ensure I lost everything too. My job, my reputation, my ability to provide for Sophie. So here's my counteroffer, Mark said. We all walk away. You delete everything, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and we pretend this never happened. I'll move out quietly. Give Linda an amicable divorce. Everyone saves face. And if I refuse? Then I burn it all down. Sterling gets an interesting story about embezzlement and employee blackmail. The police get reports of theft and extortion. Child Services gets an anonymous tip about an unstable mother exposing her daughter to dangerous situations. His eyes glittered with malice. How's shared custody sound? Think your ex-husband would be interested in revisiting the arrangement if he knew you were committing crimes? Sophie pressed against me, trembling. The mention of losing her cut deeper than any physical blow could. You're a monster, Mom whispered, finally understanding. I'm a survivor, Mark corrected. Just like your daughter. The only question is whether we all survive this, or just some of us. I looked at my shattered phone, at Kyle blocking the doorway, at Mark's confident sneer, all my careful planning, undone by underestimating his willingness to go nuclear. But then I remembered something Maya had said. Always have a backup plan for your backup plan. Okay, I said quietly. You win. Mark's smile widened. Smart choice. Kyle, go get the computer from my car. We'll handle the transfers tonight. As Kyle left, I caught Mom's eye. Remember what Dad always said? About the safety deposit box? She frowned, confused. We didn't have a safety deposit box, but Dad had always said, when in trouble, Make noise. The neighbors were our safety deposit box. Understanding flickered in her eyes. As Kyle returned with a laptop, Mom suddenly clutched her chest. I can't breathe. My heart. She collapsed dramatically, knocking over a chair with a crash. Sophie, bless her, immediately started screaming. Grandma, help! Someone help! Shut her up, Mark snarled. But Sophie ran to the window, pounding on it, screaming louder. The neighbors will call 911, I said, kneeling by Mom. Unless you want to explain to paramedics why you're in a house you were legally required to vacate? Mark's face went purple. Outside, porch lights were clicking on. Mrs. Patterson from next door was already peering through her blinds. This isn't over, he hissed. Actually, it is, I smiled coldly. Because while you were grandstanding, Maya was executing Plan B. Check your Sterling email. He fumbled for his phone, face paling as he read. I knew what it said. Maya had just submitted the anonymous fraud report we'd prepared as insurance, time-stamped 20 minutes ago, before his ambush, before any claim of blackmail could stick. You're done, Mark. You played yourself. Now get out before the cops arrive. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mrs. Patterson was nothing if not efficient. Mark grabbed Kyle, both of them fleeing through the garage as the sirens grew louder. Mom sat up, perfectly fine. Did I do good? You did perfect, I hugged her. Then Sophie. Both of you did. The paramedics found nothing wrong with Mom. Of course, we explained it away as a panic attack after unwanted visitors. Mrs. Patterson provided witness statements about 2 men fleeing the scene. That night, as Sophie slept safely between Mom and me, I reflected on the evening's chaos. Mark had one thing right. I'd been naive to think he'd go quietly, but he'd made the classic mistake of all bullies, believing fear was the only power that mattered. Tomorrow, Sterling would open an investigation. The evidence would speak for itself. Mark could claim blackmail all he wanted, but the numbers didn't lie. And with his violent visit tonight, violating the agreement and witnessed by neighbors, any credibility he had was shot. The war wasn't over. There'd be lawyers, investigations, probably a messy divorce for Mom. But the battle? That was won the moment he ran from sirens like the coward he'd always been. I closed my eyes, feeling Sophie's warm breath on my shoulder, Mom's hand in mine. We were together. We were safe. We were free. The king had tried to reclaim his throne. Long live the queens. 6 months later, I stood in my own living room, not Mom's, not a shared space where I had to shrink myself, but mine. Sophie's artwork covered the refrigerator. Her laughter echoed freely through rooms where no one would ever tell her to be quiet again. The investigation at Sterling had moved swiftly once they started pulling threads. Mark's embezzlement was even worse than I'd discovered. Nearly $750,000 over 8 years. He'd taken a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison, full restitution, and a lifetime ban from financial services. Kyle had disappeared to his mother's in California, his calls to Mom gradually fading to nothing. Mom sold the big house, too many memories, she said. She bought a cheerful condo downtown, joined a hiking club, started dating a retired teacher named Harold who brought her flowers every Friday and never once raised his voice. The woman who'd cowered in her own home now led nature walks and laughed louder than anyone at wine tastings. You saved me, she told me over coffee one Sunday. I'd forgotten who I was. You saved yourself, I corrected. That performance with the heart attack? Oscar-worthy. Maya got promoted to head of Sterling's new fraud prevention department. She implemented systems that would catch the next Mark before he could steal millions. We still had lunch every Tuesday. No longer plotting, but simply enjoying friendship forged in crisis. My ex-husband had tried to use the chaos to revisit custody, just as Mark had threatened. But Sophie, brave Sophie, told the judge in her clear, strong voice that she wanted to stay with me, that she felt safe with me, that I was the one who protected her when scary things happened. Case closed. The most surprising aftermath came from an unexpected source. 3 months after Mark's sentencing, I received a letter forwarded through his lawyer. His handwriting was smaller now, cramped. Rachel, I'm not going to apologize. We both know it wouldn't change anything. But there's something I need you to understand. In here, I have endless time to think, to finally see things for what they are. You didn't break me. I broke myself the moment I reached for what was never mine to take. The money, your mother's security, your trust. I claimed them as if they belonged to me and called it strength. All you did was hold up the mirror. Take care of Linda. She deserved more than what I gave her. Mark. I burned the letter. Some mirrors didn't need preserving. Tonight was special. Sophie's school play. She was the lead. A brave princess who saved her kingdom through wisdom and courage. Typecasting. I joked, making her giggle, as I helped with her costume. She looked at me with those serious eyes that sometimes seemed too old for her 10 years. Mom, were you scared? When Mark was being mean? Every day, I admitted, adjusting her crown. But being scared doesn't mean you can't be brave. Sometimes the bravest thing is to stay quiet and make a plan. Sometimes it's making noise when you need help. The trick is knowing which to choose. Like when I screamed for the neighbors? Exactly like that. You were so brave that night. She hugged me tight. You're brave too, Mom. The bravest. I held her close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo and bubblegum lip gloss, remembering the terrified little girl who'd watched violence explode in a dusty garage. That girl was gone, replaced by this confident, joyful child who knew her worth and her strength. The play was perfect. Sophie commanded the stage, every word clear and strong. Mom cheered louder than anyone. Harold beside her, beaming like a proud grandfather. Maya came with her kids, my Sterling family expanding beyond office walls. Even Mrs. Patterson was there, our vigilant neighbor who'd probably saved our lives that night. Afterwards, at the ice cream celebration, Sophie performed her monologue again for anyone who'd listen. No one told her to use her inside voice. No one made her feel small. She was free to be exactly who she was. Loud, brilliant, unashamed. I thought about the box in the garage that started everything, how a moment of desperate cleaning had uncovered the key to our freedom, how violence meant to break me had instead forged me into someone harder, smarter, more strategic. Mark had created his own destroyer, teaching through cruelty the very lessons I'd used to bring him down. But that felt like another lifetime now. The woman who'd accepted daily humiliation, who'd believed endurance was strength, who'd made herself small to keep an artificial peace. She was as gone as the king who'd terrorized her. In her place stood someone new, a mother who'd learned that protecting her child meant teaching her to roar, not whisper. A daughter who'd discovered that saving someone sometimes requires cold calculation, not warm compliance. A woman who understood that real power wasn't about domination, but about freedom. The freedom to live without fear, to speak without permission, to exist without apology. Sophie caught my eye across the crowded ice cream shop, chocolate sauce on her nose, crown still crooked on her head. She grinned and waved. My brave princess. My reason for everything. I waved back, my own crown invisible but no less real, the queen of my own small kingdom, hard won and fiercely defended. The battle was over, the war was won, and the peace? The peace was everything I'd imagined during those dark nights of planning and plotting. It was Sophie's laughter ringing free, Mom's newfound confidence, my own space where no one could hurt us. It was worth every risk, every calculated move, every moment of fear. Because sometimes, to save your family, you have to be willing to destroy the one who would destroy you. Sometimes, the only way out is through. And sometimes, just sometimes, the victim gets to write the ending. This was ours, and it was perfect. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your own thoughts about standing up to bullies or protecting your family. Your stories matter too, and this community is stronger when we support each other.